And then Vishwamitraji says, you have to kill this woman. Now Sri Ram is like, how do I kill her? Because per Shastras, per scriptures, you don't kill a woman, you don't kill a Brahmin, you don't kill a cow, you don't kill a woman.
We have no option but to improve or work on the expectations of the people. If the people's expectation from the politicians improve, only they can hold us responsible to the standards.
Somebody like Vibhishan, did he defect? Yes. What was that for? The problem is that we focus too much on black and white of actions rather than the principle of it. Vibhishan asked for was Param apad gatasya api dharme me matir bhava. Whatever be the situation, however bad be the situation, whatever be the calamity, let my mind and my heart and my buddhi always be into dharma.
A very good morning to all of you. It's a lovely day outside, the second day, and it has been a very, very nice session till now. Whatever we heard yesterday, so many sessions, great discussions. And we begin with a topic which is very close to our heart, and we love to talk about it with some cynicism, with some skepticism, and a lot of, helplessness. Whenever we talk about politics, the words that come to our mind: scam, scandal, corruption, nepotism. These are the words which have inextricably got linked with our perception, the public perception of politics. And this has developed over decades. It's not a new phenomenon. So it's necessary to go back to our own roots and search for what our true spirit has been civilizationally, historically, and how far we have deviated from the tradition, what we were set out to do, where we have reached. And there are a lot of interesting questions coming your way, Ami, and to your way, sir, also, because Ami is an expert on the theory, on the written text, the ancient text, which tells us what we should do. Sir is in the position of doing that. So it will be an interesting clash, I guess. They will have a lot of questions to ask each other and answer for each other. But to start with, when we talk about politics today, the theme of the session is the rules for the rulers. We don't, in a democracy, we don't call people who are in power rulers. They're not rulers. They are representatives who are running the country on our behalf. So that's a very deep rooted mindset out of which we are still to get out of. We call rulers, Punjab is being ruled by that party, Bengal is being ruled by. So they're being governed, not ruled. But in ancient times, we used to be ruled by kings, now by politicians, democratically elected. There were rules for rulers. How far are those rules applicable to the democratically elected representatives?
Thank you, Chandrachurji. Suprabhatam, everybody, and Jai Ma Sharda. Very happy to be here at the Kashmir Literature Festival. Very, very, very good question, Chandrachurji. You said we are not ruled, right? And the people in a democracy, people are representatives. In fact, I want to go back to the word Raja. Because in the past, yes, we had rulers ruled us. But the word Raja, because in the Indian context, in the Bharatiya context, they were not called rulers, they were called Rajas. Now, what was the significance of this word? In Mahabharata, Bhishma, when he's talking to Yudhishthir in Shanti Parva, he's talking about rajdharma. And there he actually talks about what the word Raja means. He says, Ranjina praja sarvas tena rajyeti shabdate. The word Raja comes from Ranja. Ranja means delight and happiness of the people, welfare of the people. So the word Raja comes from the welfare of the people. Because this person is involved in, is given the responsibility of the welfare and the delight of the people, he's called the Raja. Not because he's a ruler. It is not a status symbol. It is a position which has been given this kind of responsibility. The same thing you see in arthashastra, where Chanakya is telling, Chanakya ji tells us that Praja sukhe sukham rajnam, prajanam tu hite hitam. That for a Raja, there is nothing like my pleasure, I like, my likings and dislikings. No. For a Raja, whatever is good for the Praja is good for him. Whatever is the happiness of the Praja, that is good for him. That was the entire idea of what was expected of the Raja. Now, with this in mind, clearly there were a lot of boundaries in which the Raja had to live by. Now, rather than saying it as do's and don'ts, let me tell you it's a bhav rather than what should you do, what should you not. Okay. Of course, we have a lot of theory on how should the policies be, how should taxation happen, how should security happen, all of that. That will change depending on your circumstances as well. But what was the bhav? Now, because I basically talk about Mahabharata Ramayana, I have to talk about Ramayana here. Because the foremost concept of a happy political state comes from Ramayana, right? When anybody is asked, what is your ideal state? हम क्या कहेंगे? Ram Rajya. So, अगर Ram Rajya है, तो Ram Rajya can't just happen, right? Clearly, there were policies. Clearly, there was administration that was going on. In fact, how does a Ram Rajya happen? Comes in Ayodhya Kand, and it is not much spoken about. One, of course, we have the description of what Ram Rajya was. I'm avoiding that right now. But when Bharat comes to Chitrakoot to meet Sri Ram and to call him back, right? There is this Sarga 100, the 100th Sarga of Ayodhya Kand, where when Bharat comes, Sri Ram asks him a lot of questions about how is he governing Ayodhya. And although these are questions, these are rhetorical questions. In those questions, Sri Ram is actually laying out the policies that should be the approach of governance. Now, clearly, if the approach is that way, you will have Ram Rajya, right? But as I said, it is about the bhav. Now, what is that bhav of Raja prioritizing Praja over everything else? So I'll again narrate a story. We know that Vishwamitra ji comes to Ayodhya to take Sri Ram and Lakshman along with him for taking care of his yagna. That is how it starts. Sri Ram is very young. He's only 16 at that time. So after a little bit of hesitation, Dashrath sends him. When they are reaching Siddhashram, where actually the yagna was to be taken care of, they pass through a jungle. And that jungle, it's a very khonkar, very bhayanak jungle. वहाँ कुछ कोई रह नहीं पाता है, कुछ नहीं. So Sri Ram wants to know कि ऐसे कैसा हो गया ये जंगल जहाँ पे कोई civilization ही नहीं है. So Vishwamitra tells him that once upon a time there were two bustling cities here, which were destroyed by this woman called Tadka. And she was so ferocious that she doesn't allow anybody to even pass through this jungle. She kills all of them. And then Vishwamitra ji says, you have to kill this woman. Now Sri Ram is like, how do I kill her? Because per shastras, per scriptures, you don't kill a woman, you don't kill a Brahmin, you don't kill a cow, you don't kill a woman. So he's like, ये तो पापपूर्ण है. This is sinful. How do I kill a woman? And in that, Vishwamitra ji explains Rajdharma to Sri Ram. And he says, Nahi stri vadhe krute ghrinakarya narottama. You should not feel any daya or feel bad about killing this woman. Why? Because for a Raja, chaturvarna hitarthaya kartavya rajasunana, for the sake of your people and not for just one community or the other community, for everybody, every single person in your praja, you must do what you need to do. Drishasam andrishasam va praja rakshana karanat. You might think it is a good thing. You might think, oh, bapre, paap lagega, nahi lagega. You don't have to bother about all that. What should be your goal? What should be your objective? Praja rakshan, welfare and the security of your praja. For that, you have to do whatever you have to do. Rajabharas niyuktana eshaha dharma sanatanaha. This of praja sarvopari, putting the interest of your praja over everybody else, that is the core responsibility and the kartavya of a Raja. This is the bhav that we had. Now, how far are we from that today? Well, I'd let the others talk first. Thank you.
Okay. Now, sir, clearly we don't lack in Niti Shastra or the correct standard of governance. They have been very high, set very high from very ancient times. Now, you have seen politicians in work, and now you are one. Now, my question to you is, from the welfare of the people, how did we travel to welfare of the family or welfare of the party? And what can be done to go back to the original ideas?
Namaskar, Adab, good morning. After hearing my other co-panelist, Hami, I can assure you that now I have to go back and read your books because I loved your shloka. I can't recite it again. Ranjayati iti Raja. I didn't know the root of the word Raja. Now, first thing, Chandrachur, that I'll say, there is an expectation sometime that when it comes to Raja or our rulers, we'll get a Ramchandra or Jesus Christ or Hazrat Muhammad or Ramakrishna. We will not. We'll get the leaders from ourselves. And here the issue comes, in economics, they talk about principal agent. The principle is you have a house and you appoint me as the agent. You choose me as the agent. There is always a principal agent problem. How does the principal manage the agent? Because the agent is going to take all the decisions. So, in a sense, in a democracy, who is the ruler? The ruler is really the people. Now, they elect. Now, I don't want to get into the controversy about whether democracy and dictatorship, if we could get God as our dictator, that would be the best. But we'll get the dictator that we are like. See, democracy has a lot of problems. And Gary Baker, a Nobel laureate in 1958, wrote a paper about what are the problems of democracy. See, democracy, the first problem is ignorance, especially in an illiterate country, or I shouldn't say we are no longer illiterate, but maybe literacy is not at that level where it should be. So there is ignorance. You don't know what should be done. Second, large scale. You may be a wonderful person, but you try to fight election on your own, it's a hopeless affair. You need to be part of a party, you need to have a large organization, a lot of money. Third problem is it's periodic. Once you have elected me, you're stuck with me for 5 years. So if you have committed a mistake, you are stuck. And the last is different preferences. You want something, she wants something else. Now, what am I hitting at? I'm hitting at the fact that there's a symbiotic relationship between the people and the rulers. Barack Obama had gone to Italy, and in Milan, you see, Italians, there is a lot of similarity with us. They always blame things on their leaders. Leaders are the problem. Obama told the Milanese that, listen, stop blaming your leaders. You get the leaders you deserve. Now, am I telling you something which is a counsel in despair? No. See, where I take consolation is the fact that people are choosing the leaders, rulers. If they're choosing better rulers than what they did yesterday, they'll get better policies. People will improve. They will choose even better leaders. And I see that in India. I see that in India, that now I have immense faith and respect for our rulers, the people, and they choose leaders carefully. See, all this talk, we have a former chief election commissioner, all this talk about elections have been rigged and so on. I genuinely believe that we have got the rulers that were elected by a popular vote in all the elections for right or wrong reasons. Now, rules, what are the rules for the rulers? I think the rulers, the people, should insist on transparency. And their Right to Information Act is very important. Now, Right to Information Act, mind you, it's not costless. There are lots of people who want to find out, but if you want to apply under Right to Information, you need to spend a few days, you need to consult a lawyer, you need to find out. Now, if you do not have enlightened citizens who are willing to do that, it's not possible. But I think, Chandrachur, your question was about why don't you get better politicians?
How did we fall from the high standard?
No, high standards, if you say high standards, did we really have high standards?
The Niti Shastras?
See, now you're talking about ancient history. See, I'm not an expert in ancient history. And some of it, I maybe when Ramayana was written, it was written as an ideal. Whether for centuries we had such rulers like Lord Rama is doubtful. So, Ramayana is, to me at least, I'm a complete ignorant compared to you, Ami. I wouldn't take Ramayana as a historical chronicle. And if that was the case, we wouldn't have fallen into the dark ages. So, there are periods of Indian history when, I'm sorry, there is nothing to be proud of. So, there was decadence from somewhere. So, anyway, I'm not an expert in Ramayana and Mahabharata. So, to claim, especially after we have been a colony for at least 200 years under the Brits, to claim that we had great standards, I see the Indian story in the last century and this century as a century of progress, a story of progress. From 1947, what has happened, or even from 1900, what has happened, I'm very proud of our ancestors. We got rid of the British imperial powers. We have maintained the country's unity. Our per capita income has gone up many-fold. India, I know, where I was having a discussion, I don't remember, with some of my co speakers. We talk about national income and we becoming the fifth largest economy. We have a long way to go because in per capita income terms, we are still nowhere near. But when did India talk like this? Before independence. Before independence, our problem was, shall we be alive in the next famine? We don't talk about hunger and dying of starvation anymore. We don't talk about the Chinese coming from the northeast and capturing the whole of India. We can stand on our own. So I see it as progress, and I don't think I have given I'm incapable of giving a good answer to your question, but I think the rulers are the people. The rules they will follow will depend on their education, how the politicians and the leaders are for formulating policies, and if they formulate the right policies, the people will improve, will get better rules. Thank you.
Yes, I am coming to you. I'll just add a short question to that because I'm sure you're itching to answer that question of the historicity of Ramayana and Mahabharata, the epics. But I mean, for the sake of sticking to the topic, I mean, but the thing is, sir, I just wanted to highlight one issue. Even leaving aside the question of historicity of Ramayana, Mahabharata, and all those things, whether they were imagination or actually happened, what we have in form of the, say, the Ramayana, Mahabharata, the Niti Shastras content in them, what she described, the Vidur Niti Shastra and Vishwa's lecture to Yudhishthira at his deathbed, those are very high quality treatises, political, socio-political treatise. Even if you take them out of Mahabharata and Ramayana context, they still hold a value in terms of what are the high principles, what a ruler should aim for, those governing should aim for. No, you made one very interesting point is that in the modern democracy, people get stuck for 5 years. Even if those governing, they make a mistake, people say, now we can't do anything because we are stuck with them for 5 years. But the ancient kings, they ruled for years and years without any possibility of being removed. But even if we forget about Ramayana and Mahabharata, even if we come down to the 6th, 7th, 8th centuries, we have recorded history where we had dynasties, kings, and doing a good work in terms of governance and reaching out to the outside world, developing the economy. So things have happened. I mean, in recorded historical periods, as you said correctly, there has been a long period of decadence, and things went down. But we have done well to come out of that. The question is if we could do better by following the Niti Shastras.
So, Chandrachur, actually, I was going to say exactly what you said. I talk about Itihas, Mahabharata, and Ramayana being Itihas. I'm not going to talk about that right now because I've spoken enough about that. But I'm going to talk about what you actually said. I'll extend that. When I say Ram Rajya or when I talk about Ramayana, I'm not exactly saying कि राजा लोग क्या करते थे. You're very right about that. This is the bhav. That's why I said it is the bhav. Now, is this bhav only in Ramayana? Absolutely not. In fact, there is a reason that Ramayana or rather Ram जो Ram Raja की बात करते हैं, we talk of Sri Ram. It's not just Sri Ram. Ayodhya was what it was even before that. The reason the whole Ikshwaku dynasty is looked up to, because they all were like that. They were living, they raised themselves to that standard. But was it only them? No. We see the same bhav come in Mahabharata. In fact, the definition of Raja, I said, it comes from Shanti Parva, right? You have Rajas like Yudhishthir, you have others who were always kept in check by their gurus, by others, by people telling them what is expected out of them. Again, I'll go back to Ramayana, right? Because हमको लगता है कि एक individual है तो हो गया and everything is on the individual. No, a lot of it depends on the praja as well. Again, a small incident before I talk about something else. In Ramayana, when Sri Ram goes to Vanvas, okay, he goes to Vanvas and there are a group of rishis who come to him. They say, you have to protect us from, there's a lot of issues going on in the jungle. Our yagnas are being destroyed. We are being harassed. We are being killed. So you better protect us. Now, they are not going to do yachna to the Raja. आप please हमें बचाइए या आप हमारे लिए करेंगे क्या नहीं करेंगे. नहीं. The rishis are going and saying, Ram, it is your kartavya to protect us. And they say that as a Raja, people pay tax to you, right? They pay tax to you. It is therefore your responsibility to take care of these people who pay tax to you. Now, we as rishis don't pay tax to you. However, all the rituals that we do, the sadhana that we do, 25% of it you get. The punya you get. Now, this again, I'm talking about the bhav. Yeah? You get that punya. So, you better protect us, they are saying. So, this is an ask from the people. In that sense, I completely agree with what Dr. Lahiri said, that people will have to hold their politicians to account, right? They will have to ensure that there is accountability. In that sense, as you mentioned, Raja ka time alag tha. There were so many of, they did not have the insecurity, 5 saal ke baad kya hoga, right? They had the time to do what they want. But then again, I said the Niti Shastra, that bhav of what is expected out of people who administer, is not just in Ramayana, it is in Mahabharata. You see the same thing come in Chanakya, right? Now, when Chanakya is writing the arthashastra, although we say Kautilya's arthashastra, Chanakya's arthashastra, in the very beginning, he says, what I have done is compiled the thoughts of various gurus of arthashastra who have come before me, and I have added my own, right? After that, you have Kamandakya. After that, you had people, say, in the times of Shivaji, who compiled the Niti Shastra for them. The bhav was always the same. And as far as rajas or leaders go, we have seen rajas like Ahilyabai Holkar, right? They lived up to those standards set by the Niti Shastra. In the more recent history, if you go to Baroda, Sayajirao Gaikwad, the way he has administered his people was actually something worth emulating for others as well. So, yes, at the end of the day, it is the individuals, the Rajas have to be, or rather, today, the politicians have to be held to account by the people. When people realize what they want, when they are more informed, when they're more educated, clearly they will do better, is what I think. The other point I want to add is, in a democracy, while it is not, because it's not the Raja system so far, you have other institutes. You have the judiciary, you have CC, which keep the politicians into check, right? Now, the problem sometimes becomes, how much teeth do they have, one, and what is their accountability to the people? Because going back to arthashastras, the judiciary at that time, they were accountable to the Raja. If the judge gave a wrong decision or did not give pronounce a judgment when they had to, they were punished. Today, do we have that in the judiciary? Is the judiciary accountable to anybody about the policies that they want to, whatever, enforce or whatever it is? So, lots of these questions get complicated in a democracy. So, I appreciate the issues in a democracy, but I probably agree where Lahiri ji also says that this is the best we have at this point in time.
Okay, those are very interesting points. I mean, the question that what you said triggered in my mind is about good people being in politics. Now, in the ancient times, there were rishis who were not rulers, but they guided the rulers. In our modern political history, if we go back to the time of our independence, we see Mahatma Gandhi arguing very forcefully to disband the Indian National Congress because he was very disturbed by the corruption and the greed which he saw, and he wanted a band of selfless workers to spread out across the country and help in governance. That did not happen. Later on in the 70s, we see Jayaprakash Narayan's movement, where JP himself is leading a movement. He is inspiring thousands of youngsters. But when the time comes, he is not in power. He has guided people, many of whom have, done phenomenal work, but turned corrupt themselves later on in their lives. People guided by Mahatma Gandhi, who have announced to the whole world that they work on Gandhian principles, have done things which they should not have, or which the Mahatma himself would not have approved of. So, is a disconnect between uh, people who set the standards and people who actually work them? And does that tie with the general cynical complaint that we have कि अच्छे लोग पॉलिटिक्स में नहीं आते हैं इसीलिए पॉलिटिक्स का ये हाल है? सवाल ये है कि why are good people not coming into politics, if you agree with that?
I was thinking that it would not be such a serious discussion, but we have brought up topics which are very important. First, I think there is this unrealistic expectation that politicians are not normal human beings. We politicians also feel hungry. We also want to earn money. We want power. We want facilities. So to expect a simple mortal like some MPs and MLAs to be great human beings, even the Ikshakus, there are not too many Ramchandras. They produced one Ramchandra, not too many of them. Even the Pandavas, you look at them. I'm waiting to read your book. I am not an expert in Mahabharata and Ramayana, but even if you look at the Cholas, the Vijayanagar Empire, even the Mughals, they didn't last. So if they are following the best principles of rajdharma, then they would have continued. But here in democracy, I think the most important thing that you must remember that politicians have also their personal interest. And here, there is a famous quote. Sival Saab will correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Prime Minister of Luxembourg once said that we politicians know what should be done. The question is if we do that, will we win the election? So, to expect a politician to do things which will not lead to their victory in an election is very unrealistic. Because the problem is, unlike the Ikshakus or the kings, the politicians have to get elected. In fact, there was a meeting between the Indian finance minister and one foreign finance minister. They're exchanging pleasantries. And the minister said, everything is fine, but our appointment is not permanent. See, unlike IAS and IFS officers whose appointment is permanent for life, we politicians are appointed only for 5 years. So you have to go and get re-elected. Now here, I think we have no option but to improve or work on the expectations of the people. If the people's expectation from the politicians improve, only they can hold us responsible to the standards. Yesterday, there was a discussion about name and shame. I was reassured by Qureshi Saab that name and shame is working. Yes, it's true. All of us are not beyond name and shame. We feel ashamed to do a few things. But I wish more of us would be worried if some news clip came out that I'm guilty of corruption. If that sense of guilt and shame is not there, then it's impossible to transact in a civilized society. A civilized society expects some amount of ground rules to be followed. If those ground rules are not followed, then the game is disrupted.
Yes, you made a few very, very valid points, and they actually explain the realities of being today's politician. And you're right. I mean, we can have very high standards, which we should, but then holding everybody against those standards and expecting them to meet those standards is not realistic. So we have to tone down our expectations too. To that extent, you are absolutely right, and I completely agree in agreement with you. Look, I was just reminded while I was reading Udyag Parva, and when Kunti goes to meet Karn, they have a lot of talks on various things, personal things, family things, and then there's one statement by Karn where he says that, where he refers to what almost seems like uh, defection in political parties now. So he says that no, no, he didn't defect. So he justifies that people who have gained a lot under one person, one ruler, and when the time comes, the adverse times comes, he ditches that person and moves over to another party, he is headed for hell. So that sounded almost like, I mean, when we see the horse trading and the moving over across parties for coming to government, sticking to power, I mean, quite fascinating that these lines were written like thousands of years ago. But coming to your closing statement, Ami, what are the rules? What do we do? What can the civil society do? What can experts like scholars like you do to bring the standards and the practitioners closer to each other?
Look, I have to comment on this part that you mentioned about the defection, right? Because, sometimes we have a very misplaced understanding of even loyalty. First of all, just going by the facts of Mahabharata, Karna wanted that war as much as Duryodhan did. He was instrumental in ensuring that Duryodhan does not back out. When every single person, including his parents, were of the opinion that we need to protect the family and the people and not fight. Okay? But Karna was the only one who ensured that Duryodhan does never compromise. And both of them together led to a destruction of 50 lakh warriors. Yeah, very nice, huh? He didn't defect. What did that lead to? So, if you are standing in your loyalty with adharma and feeling proud about it, that is absolutely stupid. Okay? On the other hand, we have somebody like Vibhishan. Did he defect? Yes. What was that for? The problem is that we focus too much on black and white of actions rather than the principle of it. Vibhishan, when they were doing their tapasya and all that, Ravan wanted immortality, right? The one thing that Vibhishan asked for was Param apad gatasya api dharme me matirbhava. Whatever be the situation, however bad be the situation, whatever be the calamity, let my mind and my heart and my buddhi always be into dharma. Now, what is dharma? Dharma is dharayati iti dharma, one that sustains and leads to progress and prosperity versus leading to destruction. What do we want our leaders to do? Be loyal for the heck of it, or stand by that which leads to the betterment of the society? I think the issue is very much in our understanding of the concepts. And when those are not understood, obviously we'll do wrong things. We have wrong expectations, right? Now, what is it that we can do now? Again, I think when our rishis were writing the Niti Shastra and all that, they understood what an individual is, right? Not every individual can be like Raja Sagar or Raja Sriram or others. But they gave us the, how do I say, they gave us the concept. And the concept is, what is it that will lead to a successful administration? And they say, so very, very, very important again. When Yudhishthira and Bhishma are talking, Yudhishthira asks Bhishma, what is that one foremost priority for a Raja? Now, what do you think he would have said? Any guesses? What do you think? What is the foremost priority or foremost thing that a Raja has to do? This is the question asked. Bhishma answers, but I just want to know from anybody, what do you think he would have said? Anything that you think is important for a Raja or a leader or whatever? Raja ka welfare? Anybody else? Dharma? You know what he says very interestingly? He says, Atma Jaya, self-discipline, self-control, controlling all your indriyas, controlling your likes and dislikes. That is the foremost responsibility of the Raja. Because a Raja who does not even win over himself, what will he win over the others? Right? So that again is the very simple but such a profound concept. Now, how do you put that in action? Can you ensure all the Rajas, all politicians, especially today, in such a setup be like that? Absolutely not. So what does Chanakya do? Again, arthashastra. The issue is when we talk about arthashastra, we only talk about policy and kutilta and foreign policy and all that. Is that important? Absolutely. But for me, the most important chapter of arthashastra is the first chapter, which is Vinayadhikaranam. In Vinayadhikaranam, the whole focus is on training and education of the prince. And in that training and education, the foremost importance, of course, all the policies and Niti Shastra and Danda Niti and all that. Again, it is about how do you develop the personality, a self-disciplined personality of the prince. How do you apply it today? I think it's very difficult to enforce it that way, right? But when people are wanting to come into politics or especially into administration, like the Babus, the IAS, right? Can we have some of these ideas at least being taught to them? Ideas about where loyalty matters, idea about what is dharma, idea about what is it that we should cherish and glorify, right? Some of those things that tell them that it is not just about them. It is not about only your khana pina and all that. वो करना है तो आप बाकी सब करो ना, है corporate. आप बाकी सब करो या वो करके आ जाओ. आपको अगर पॉलिटिक्स में जाना है, लीडरशिप में जाना है, you can't just keep talking about मेरा घर भर जाए, मेरा पेट भर जाए. Then this is not the right profession for you, right? Can you enforce it? No. But can you expect it? Definitely, and we should. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very nice explanation. Well, I take your point about defection. That is a see. I mean, when I said that talked about defection, what I had in mind is the current politics of scam-tinted politicians jumping one ship to another. So they are neither righteous nor do they have any moral high ground. But your point is taken. But another point you raised, which leads me to highlight this issue, for emphasize on this issue, that this session was on rules for rulers. We are looking at politicians, those who are governing. But we are talking about Bidur also, and probably that's another area where we can focus on and talk about that. We are discussing Dhritarashtra, but we should also talk about the Vidur. So not only the politicians, the bureaucrats who are advising the politicians, that's where the focus also probably needs to go. You briefly touched upon it, but so would you like a closing comment?
See, what I'm finding is that it's very difficult to disagree with Ami. But I'll just tell her that as a practical rule, I mean, you have denounced Karna and said that he didn't side with Dharma, he just stuck to his loyalty. Now, if you ask my Gotra people, politicians who defect, you'll find no one who will say that he is doing anything but Dharma. I'm defecting. It's just incidental that they'll make me a minister. I'm defecting because it's on high principle. I can't stand my party anymore. They're all wrong. I've just realized. So when it comes to practically implementing this, it's like an army. I have a battalion, and in my battalion, there are people. I may have taken the wrong decision to go and capture that thing. If my soldiers defect, then an army cannot run. So when it comes to practical policy about defection, see, anti-defection law, I think Qureshi Saab will agree, it's not working. Somehow it has become completely toothless. And horse trading, if you give that great advice about stick to your principles, high moral values, and so on, all of us politicians will charm you with our morality and sticking to principles. So that's my last comment.
Thank you, sir, for your candid comments. Thank you, Ami, for enlightening all of us. And that was indeed a very, very heartening and, for me, a learning session. And we have run out of time. We have come close to a close of this session. Thank you very much, all those in the audience, for listening patiently. I hope you enjoyed too. And we will see you around. Thank you very much.